And so I try to really study how the banjo works in a band setting. I want to do whatever I can do, whatever knowledge I have to make that song as good as I can make it, not necessarily make it about me.
Greetings, friends. Welcome into another episode of the Picky Fingers Banjo Podcast. This is Keith Billick, your host. I hope you are all having a wonderful summer and remembering to thoroughly wash all your lettuces and other fresh vegetables. Can't be too careful out there, folks. Speaking of having a great summer, I was able to do a bit of traveling to a couple banjo camps in the month of June. The first one was Midwest Banjo Camp, and the second was Camp Bluegrass Pride. So first of all, shout out to anybody who I either had in class there or met or hung out. They were both wonderful events, always very inspiring, and plenty of banjo, which always puts me in a great mood. So highly recommend checking those events out for next year. I do have a break, but there is one more camp that I'll be teaching at this year. That's Great Lakes Music Camp on the shores of Lake Michigan. You definitely should check that out. Go to greatlakes.org. The instructor lineup is amazing. The camp itself is amazing. Highly recommended. Now, speaking of awesome people, you know who else is pretty awesome? Todd Goodell. Todd is this episode's Patreon VIP supporter of the show. He now makes his home in Knoxville, Tennessee, but he's originally one of my fellow Michigan natives. I knew I liked this guy. He experimented with various other instruments before finally coming to his senses and finding the banjo. And don't worry, Todd, that happened to me too, but I'm glad you're here with me now. And of course, I'm especially glad that he went to patreon.com/banjopodcast to throw in a few dollars per month to support the show. Not only do you get the satisfaction of supporting the world's greatest banjo podcast, but there are excellent rewards in return. So please go check that out, patreon.com/banjopodcast. I got another website to throw at you folks. It's just banjopodcast.com. That's for any of you who want to rep the official Picky Fingers podcast merchandise, along with the world-famous logo designed by four-time and counting IBMA Graphic Designer of the Year and professional banjo player themselves, Grace Vanthoff. So go check that out. The best way to become the envy of all your friends, neighbors, and business associates. banjopodcast.com. You can also email the show, pickyfingersbanjopodcast@gmail.com. Always love hearing from you folks, so keep in touch.
So goodbye, little darling, I'm leaving. I'll never again walk through your door. I can tell by the way that you treat me that you don't love me anymore.
Today's featured guest is Daniel Grindstaff. Daniel really jumped into the deep end of the bluegrass pool by starting his professional career when he was just a teenager and quickly gained experience with legends such as Jim and Jesse and the Osborne Brothers. Now, since that time, you can hear Daniel's exquisite sense of tone, taste, and timing on his solo records and now with his current project, which is called Daniel Grindstaff and the Uptown Troubadours. Speaking of which, they had quite a week recently. On the very same day, they were nominated for the IBMA New Artist of the Year and then also made their debut that night on the Grand Ole Opry. And, I figured the only way things could get even better for him would be to be featured on everyone's favorite banjo podcast. So here he is, folks. Please give a warm Picky Fingers Banjo Podcast welcome to Daniel Grindstaff.
I'm Daniel Grindstaff. I'm from Elizabethton, Tennessee, and I really got to where I loved banjo. I was around the age of 12. My dad's actually a banjo player.
Okay.
Played several years with Carl Story before I was ever born, and actually played the Ryman Auditorium in April of 1970, long before I came around as well.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. My grandmother loved music. She played guitar and sang. And so I guess I was around 11 or 12 years old that I decided I wanted to play banjo. And I really primarily wanted to do it to spend time with my dad. And so some of the first sounds I heard that made me want to play banjo, actually there's one record in particular. It was an album that the Osborne Brothers did with Mac Wiseman where they had recorded a version of Midnight Flyer. And that banjo kick in particular is what really fired me up and wanted me to play banjo.
Midnight Flyer, engineer, won't you let your whistle moan? Midnight Flyer, I paid my dues and I feel like traveling on.
Yeah, I love that album. It's just called like the
the
Bluegrass
essential
album or something like that. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it was a CMH record.
Yeah.
And so that was in a record collection that my dad had. He had a stack of actual vinyl albums, which have since come back around. But I heard that record, and I wanted to spend time with him and learn how to play banjo. And my grandmother was really into music. And through those years, right about that time, my parents had divorced. And so music had become more of an outlet for me than anything. I always felt like if I could do what the guys I seen on TV watching the Grand Ole Opry could do, I could kind of forge my own path and make my own way. And so about the age of 12, the Grand Ole Opry was my goal. That's what I wanted to do, and I was going to have to figure out how to get there and try to make that happen.
I find it so interesting that you must have had plenty of banjo going in your ear all this time, and it took hearing a Sonny Osborne record as opposed to like just hearing your dad that made it click for you. Do you have any way of explaining how to rationalize that?
The interesting part, we had a very just inexpensive banjo around the house, but he had really quit playing at that time.
Okay.
So the music I was getting exposed to was from spending time with my grandmother and going around to local music. There was a lot of local jams at that time and a lot of local music. And he would later, not long after I got to playing, he bought another Gibson banjo and he still has it and got him back into playing, I guess.
Oh, that's cool.
But he would show me this or that, and I would work on it, and he would let me know if I wasn't doing it right, of course. And it was me and the vinyls, man. I had a collection of Osborne Brothers music and Flatt and Scruggs, Jimmy Martin, and some country gentleman stuff and all that, and never really learned to read tablature, and I really just learned to play by ear. And
well, those sound like some great teachers, man.
Yeah, that I come through it that way, and even then we didn't have YouTube, and it sounds like it was a million years ago, but it really wasn't that long ago, I guess. And
no, even when I started, it was the 2000s, and YouTube wasn't a thing for me either. But it was soon after.
And any article I could find, we had a huge stack of old Bluegrass Unlimiteds and banjo newsletters. Any article that I could find to figure out why they did what they did and how they did it, man, I would read it and try to learn all that I could. And that led to my love for Flatt and Scruggs, because I'm like, well, if Sonny Osborne says that Earl Scruggs the best, I better check this out.
Yeah.
And which led to my love for J.D. Crowe and a whole lot of Bill Emerson and Alan Shelton, and I can keep naming just a lot of banjo players. And
the web just keeps spreading out.
Yeah. But so I come to banjo from that one particular song, that kickoff. It caught my attention, and the love, it sparked the love there, and trying to spend time with my dad and all that.
Do you remember any specific, was your dad pointing out things for you to listen for in banjo playing that he thought were important for you to learn, or what?
Yes. He would point out how important the melody is. You listen, he would, you listen to what Sonny does or Earl does, particular Earl Scruggs, how he always makes it a point to play out the melody and keep the melody at the core of what he's doing. I tell folks nothing, really, I don't consider anything I do on banjo all that difficult, but I do try to capture melody. JD did that, and of course he had his interpretation of that, as well as, Sonny did. That's different than Earl, but it's got that basis in it. And Alan Shelton was the same way, and his was a whole different way of taking the melody and having his influence. And one really thing that has stuck with me that my dad pointed out is for me to learn from these people, but try to be my own player. And to this day, he's still living, and he would say, you want to have these influences, but you also want to be yourself. And that's one thing that I've really loved about getting to record my own albums is playing a song the way I hear it. And that has been something I've enjoyed the last few years a great deal.
I would love to talk to you about that for probably about as long as you want to.
Sure.
In terms of like, what types of things do you think differentiate your playing? What did you discover as you prioritized being your own type of player as opposed to a J.D. Crowe or Osborne protege?
Your influences, if they're really strong influences, I feel like are always there. But one thing, and this might be a total different angle than what we're going, but one thing I learned from all of my huge influences was to listen to music, not just one genre. I listen to a lot of music. I'm a big Glenn Campbell fan. I love Glenn Campbell's guitar playing. Goodness, I love Merle Haggard, but I also love the players that they surrounded themselves with. I love a lot of 80s rock. I'm a huge Rod Stewart fan, Billy Joel fan, and as much of anything is the production of a lot of their songs, I think, man, wonder what they were thinking in the studio when all this went down, because just the music production alone is so good, you know? And so I try to really study how the banjo works in a band setting, that I'm want to do whatever I can do, whatever knowledge I have to make that song as good as I can make it, not necessarily make it about me. I want the song as a whole to shine. If there's one particular thing about all those guys is how good they can make a band sound. And great players can do that, be it banjo or mandolin or guitar or fiddle or steel guitar or piano. I would go on to, of course, work with Jim and Jesse McReynolds and the Osborne Brothers. And the way I learned to play, I really struggle to play things the same way twice. And there's a lot of stuff when I worked with the Osborne Brothers that I would learn the song. I would learn the tempo, I would learn the song, but I might not necessarily learn it note for note as Sonny played it. Yeah. But he seemed fine with that because I was certain enough with the song itself to make the song as good as I could as a musician.
Now, you said you struggled to play it the same way twice. Do you view that as a deficiency? Because a lot of people almost have that as a badge of honor, that they're able to maybe pivot a little bit here and there.
It's whether it is or not is specific to me, and I'll have to die on that hill because I've played too many years now, and I'm too old to change it. But I'm a very emotional player. I really play off of a vocalist, and wherever they're landing emotionally is kind of what I'm going to kind of play off of, and that's what I love about music. Though I love the emotional connection that you can have with your instrument or have with a song and another person. It's really the universal language, and I love that. I really do. So I say this, I probably wouldn't be a really good banjo teacher, because if I had a student that said, okay, do that again, I would have to stop and think, well, what did I just do? Yeah. So,
Totally. You've brought up a few things that I think all converge a bit. You've talked about how your goal was to play the Opry, and you've brought up playing with Jim and Jesse and the Osbournes. I've heard you tell the story before about how you got to sit in for your first time playing the Opry. Would you mind retelling that? Because I think it's a really cool story.
Sure. So again, music was my outlet. And the first trip I did with Jim and Jesse McReynolds was the last half of my senior year in high school. And we went to Columbia, Mississippi. And it's about a 4.5 hour drive to meet the bus. And I had a Honda Prelude at the time, and I got in my Honda and had packed my bag and packed all the nice clothes I had to try to impress them. And, went to Columbia, Mississippi this is the funny part, to play electric bass with Jesse's grandson, Luke, which was Jim's great nephew. He was doing a special show in Columbia, Mississippi, and they knew I wanted the banjo gig. They had a great banjo player playing with them at the time. Lloyd Douglas is his name, and great musician.
Oh, yeah.
Actually lives in Michigan,
Yeah, I love Lloyd. He's one of my favorites.
What a great player. Just all-around great musician. Banjo, guitar, Lloyd can do anything. Yep. And Lloyd would soon give his notice after that. And the first trip I did was the last half of my senior year. Went to Columbia, Mississippi, which turned into going on a few more trips. And then I wound up moving over to banjo after Lloyd made his exit. So did that. Jim passed away, and I was still playing with Jesse at the time. So I was friends with Sonny and didn't know Bobby all that well, but I was friends with Sonny. And when we would be playing the Opry, we would always have the same dressing room together. So anytime I had the chance to see the Osborne Brothers as a kid, after I picked up a banjo, I would go see them. Like, they were superstar level to me. That I heard that sound. That's why I wanted to play banjo. Seen them on TV.
Yeah.
Fast forward to my time working with Jim and Jesse, we shared the same dressing room. So we'd really gotten a lot closer and spent a lot more time together. And in 2004, that's when Sonny had hurt his rotator cuff in his shoulder. It was August of 2004. On a Sunday afternoon, he called me and said, "Hey, are you busy Tuesday?" No, what you got going on? And, well, we've got a show at the Opry, and, I need you to play banjo. Well, it caught me off guard. And I'm like, well, okay, let me think through this, I said, rattled it off just, without even thinking. I said, "Are you sure?" And he's like, "Do you think if I wasn't sure, I would be sitting here wasting my time on the phone?" It's something like that. If I wasn't sure, I wouldn't be calling. And it got quiet, and I'm just trying to process it, And he's like, "Well, do you want to do it or not?" And yeah, I'll be there. Well, okay, 7 o'clock, wear a suit, be on time. All right, we'll see you there. And I'm like, whoa, because I learned these songs as a kid, and people would like, "I don't know why you learn all this Osborne Brothers music. Not like they'll ever need a banjo player,
Yeah,
So,
well, here you go.
Yeah, fast forward all these years, here I am.
That's cool.
So I get there, of course, I get there early, and they start filtering in, and here comes Bobby and the band, and I'm standing there, and it's like 6:30. About 6:40, Sonny walks in. And I'm like, God, there he is. And I was too intimidated to ask him anything. I'm like, well, either I'll get through it or I won't, And so Bobby is standing to my left, who I actually know less than I did Sonny at that time. And it was kind of had the white noise going in the room where people's tuning and they're kind of talking. And we have not struck a note. I have never played with these guys. And here's the 20-year-old kid. Well, I'd have been 21 at that time. I look over at Bobby and I say it as low as I can. I said, so do you want to run over anything? And I mean, without missing a beat, he looks over and he says, "No, sport, I reckon by now I've got my part." And so here we're closing in, and I mean, we did not rehearse any songs. And we go out, and, well, all right, let's head that way. And I still don't know what we're playing, right?
They didn't give you a set list or nothing?
No. And they've got like 40 years of music, plus 40 plus years of all this music, and I'm like, well, all right, and so Eddie Stubbs starts introducing them. And Sonny's standing over here, Bobby's standing there. I'm nervous. Thankfully, I had played the Opry for a couple of years at that point, but I'm nervous. Eddie Stubbs is introducing them, and Sonny, during the introduction, Sonny's looking at me, and he's like, well, he said, so do you know the Count on Midnight Flyer? And I instantly went back to being the 12-year-old kid hearing that song.
Full circle.
Right then. And I said, yeah. He's like, "You sure?" I said, "Yeah, I know it." And he said, "All right. Midnight Flyer, sunny side of the mountain, Kentucky, Rocky Top. We're not going to talk a whole lot in between. And I hope you're ready to go." And about that time, Eddie Stubbs says, "Ladies and gentlemen, celebrating their 40th anniversary at the Grand Ole Opry, here's the fabulous Osborne Brothers."
Midnight flyer, engineer
And so the first note I struck with Sonny and Bobby was Midnight Flyer, and that was the set.
Amazing.
Yeah. Oh, it was
amazing.
I've got a big 8x10 in my music room at home, and Sonny is standing over my left shoulder because he was singing, but he wasn't playing,
right?
Yeah. And he stood over my left shoulder, and you just cannot make this stuff up, man. And there were so many other players to choose from at that time, and great players, rather than these bluegrass legends bringing this kid from East Tennessee that had never played professionally on board, that turned into me getting to play, not only with that set of heroes, but the Osborne Brothers, and that's how I landed working with them. And I actually played Bobby's second to last Opry appearance. So we had and Jesse too, I never worked with the Osborne Brothers full time, but I did a lot of shows with them and a lot of Opry spots through those years. And of course, Jesse as well. I did his actual last road show up here that he played in Bristol at Rhythm and Roots. And so we had a lot of years there of friendship, and it was a wealth of knowledge, just a wealth of music knowledge. I would not be able to do what I do now without having worked with those guys. Unequivocally, it would not have happened. And, one thing doing music in the season of life that I'm doing it is the influence of that generation that I was able to spend time with kind of shines through with what I do now, because without those guys, it would not have, that was such a big dream of mine that a lot of those years I just didn't feel I would ever capture, and they seen it through. I don't know that they ever really knew how important it actually was. I thought I told them, but still, that's all they'd ever known. So
yeah. Sorry to interrupt this incredible episode, folks, but I couldn't go any longer without telling you about a few of the official sponsors of the Picky Fingers Banjo Podcast. Are you looking to improve your playing by learning directly from one of the world's most talented players and instructors? It sounds too good to be true, but it's a reality over at pegheadnation.com. With Peghead Nation's streaming video courses in banjo, guitar, mandolin, fiddle, dobro, upright bass, and ukulele, you can learn bluegrass, old time, and plenty of other styles. PegheadNation.com features a great lineup of courses. This is just the banjo section. You can learn beginning banjo or bluegrass banjo with Bill Evans, old time banjo with Bruce Molsky, the banjo according to Danny Barnes, contemporary bluegrass banjo with Wes Corbett, and banjo in the style of Earl Scruggs or J.D. Crowe with Bill Evans. Now, regardless of which one you choose, it's going to have high-quality video and audio production, downloadable notation and tab, play-along tracks, and plenty of tunes. And the best part is that listeners of the Picky Fingers Banjo Podcast get their first month for absolutely free. Go to pegheadnation.com, use the promo code PickyFingers, all one word, all lowercase, at checkout. That's pegheadnation.com, and the promo code is PickyFingers to get your first month free. The Picky Fingers Banjo Podcast is also sponsored by Elderly Instruments. Elderly isn't just a retail store, it is an institution for banjo players and string musicians of all types. Family owned since 1972, the good folks at Elderly have discovered that the secret to becoming the world's most trusted source for new, used, and vintage instruments, it isn't that complicated. You provide the best selection of high-quality instruments and accessories for all price ranges, and then you stand behind those products with the industry's best customer service. If you can't make it to their Lansing, Michigan showroom, that's okay too. They ship worldwide and are always available to help. Visit elderly.com or call them up at 517-372-7880. And speaking of family businesses, Eric Sullivan of Sullivan Banjos knows a thing or two about that. The Sullivan family has been at the forefront of the banjo-making world for decades now. I bought my Sullivan banjo brand new in 2004, from Elderly Instruments, by the way, and I swear that it sounds better and better every time I play it. The great news is that the famous tone and craftsmanship of Sullivan Banjos is still available. Give Eric a call at 502-365-5022 to discuss building your dream banjo today, or visit sullivanbanjo.com. That's 502-365-5022 or sullivanbanjo.com.
The Picky Fingers Banjo Podcast is sponsored by Bluegrass Country Radio, America's oldest bluegrass, old-time, and Americana station. Shows are curated by real DJs, not computer algorithms. From classic bluegrass and traditional country to the best current artists, you'll find it all streaming at bluegrasscountry.org and on the station's free smartphone apps. That's bluegrasscountry.org.
Are you able to articulate how you grew as a banjo player, or specific things that you maybe do differently even today because of what you learned during that time?
Sure. There's a whole lot of things. Just playing in a band setting, being a team player. We traveled a lot through those years. There was one year there in particular, I bet I did probably 125 road shows and 30 or 40 Opry shows,
Wow.
And just being mindful of working in a band setting, being prepared, being on time, having just it was more than just playing banjo, being the team player, having a good attitude. Traveling can be rough. I mean, there was just so many things that instead of getting down about it or situations that happen, we'd just end up looking at each other and laughing. We would be somewhere and you could just keep trying for a sound check, and it just wasn't coming together, and you would just work through it. But a lot I learned. Jim was such a good businessman. He was very mindful. He was very, 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 very prepared and put together. And Jesse was very creative. And so Jesse, I had no clue about singing parts when I started with them, and he was the one who said, "Hey, if you're going to be in this, you need to learn vocal parts, and I'll help you. And if you mess up, we'll do it again." Because he would alternate. He could sing any part, and he would alternate with Luke, their grandson, who would take over on lead, and Jesse would go to baritone. And he's like, "Well, you try that one next show. We'll work on it on the bus, and you try it. You've got it." He's like, "You've got the voice for it." And, there was none of this, setting you up for failure. It was always this encouraging environment. Anytime I was around Jesse, he was constantly listening to other music. He was writing new instrumentals. He was writing songs. He just never stopped creating. And they always treated everyone that surrounded them very, very fair.
Yeah, I think you're the third Jim and Jesse banjo player I've had, and they've all said pretty much the exact same thing. So that they definitely had a reputation about that.
Sure. And so Jesse was so inspirational to me, just how much he enjoyed music and enjoyed creating music. And there's an album, I don't know if a lot of people necessarily heard it. 2 albums in particular I'll point out as to how creative he was. And one of those was the Chuck Berry album they did in the 60s.
I stood a log cabin made of earth and wood, where lived a country boy named Johnny B. Good, who never ever learned to read or write so well, but he could play a guitar like a ringing a bell. Go, 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 Johnny, go, 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 Johnny, go, 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 Johnny, go, 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 Johnny, go, Johnny be good.
They were on Capitol Records, huge record label, through those years, on there with mainstream country artists, members of the Grand Ole Opry, and they did a full album of Chuck Berry covers. And it is a great record. Jim and Jesse, Alan Shelton, Jim Buchanan on a lot of that. It is just an incredible, incredible album. I encourage anybody that's not heard that to go listen to it. Well, fast forward to one of the last albums he recorded that Jesse McReynolds would record was a Grateful Dead tribute. And it's a great album.
Don't cry now. Don't you cry. Don't
But they have such a vast, just plethora of music, all the way to this really infused country stuff that they cut that was so good, to their classic bluegrass stuff, to the Chuck Berry album. And so...
And even within the bluegrass idiom, he was really innovative with his style too.
Oh, his mandolin style, and that was one thing that always stood out, is he did not try to replicate anybody. He, again, like we were talking earlier, he played music as he heard it, and he played melody really, really well, but he also played around the melody a lot. But just the musicianship, I learned so much from just zooming out and as a whole of how they treated people, how they made people feel welcome, how they made them feel like, here's this kid, not out of high school yet, and they made me feel like I was part of what they were doing. And looking back, they had zero clue the drive that I had as a 12, 13-year-old kid, with difficult things to get through and how much that impacted me. But that's the way they treated everyone,
Did you feel like there was an expectation for you to play similar to whether it's Alan Shelton or
Sure.
Lloyd Douglas, or
yes.
there was that expectation of you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the expectation was there. If you out of respect for, and I think all of us knew that, I was really good friends with Jim Britton before I met Lloyd, and Jim, man, and to this day, he can nail the Alan Shelton stuff. And so I love their music. Thankfully, I loved Alan's playing. And but I've seen Jim. The first Jim and Jesse's shows I seen was Raymond McLean, which he did a great job, and then Jim Britton after that. And so I felt like, out of respect for their songs and their success, it was an underlying given that you were going to learn the songs the way they anticipated hearing them, which was like the record. Yeah. And it didn't. What I did again was never the same thing, but night after night, there would be things in there that would be different, or I might play something in the backup different, but Jesse was the same way. I never heard him play anything exactly the same way twice, ever, ever, So we were playing off of each other a lot, and but I would always try to make sure I had the tempo the way he wanted it. If we got a little excited and I kicked something too fast or whatever, we were young, and his grandson was young, and we were, he would tell us, he's like, boys, pull that one back a little bit, when we play tomorrow. Yeah. And I didn't want to hinder anything they were doing. I wanted to step in there and play what they anticipated hearing as best I could.
I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit, but I'm just so anxious to maybe trick you into playing something. Is there something that maybe you learned that was more Shelton-y that you played with them than you would have normally played it if you just had the liberty to play it however you would have wanted?
One of the first songs I did with him, Alan did a lot of his right-hand rolls, and he had so much influence from steel guitars and that world of, and most of those musicians did. A lot of them did. Sonny did as well. JD did, from the blues world, of course. Alan had particular roles that were specific to him, and I'll play you a couple of things here, okay? The first song I did with them on the Grand Ole Opry was one of their classic songs that they did on Columbia, entitled "She Left Me Standing on the Mountain," and it was a Shelton banjo kick. So he had a very forward roll in there, and we may have to edit this and me play it twice because it's been a lot of years. So we'll see. Yeah. All right, and it's. So that was the first song I played with them.
Wonderful.
And, of course, Alan, goodness, he had so many great things. Just that bounce to it.
Yeah, so classic. That's great.
Yeah.
Did you ever record with Jim and Jesse? Are you on some of their records?
I recorded an album that Jesse did after Jim passed called New Horizons.
I'm a rambler, showboat gambler. I make my living on the run. I'm a rambler, showboat gambler. Big money will always be my home.
It was kind of a mixture album because he was doing some acoustic country flavored stuff and some bluegrass stuff. But yeah, I was on that album.
Cool.
And I think that would have been 2003 that we did that.
Any other stories stick out in your mind from those days? Just anything amusing or informative or educational that would be fun to tell people about?
Oh goodness. Well, through the Jim and Jesse years, their grandson Luke got a great idea to see if I could drive a bus coming through Memphis, and that did not work. There's probably still road cones off on the side of the road. Got into construction, and I accidentally hit a few road cones. It's probably still somewhere off in the distance in Memphis. So we had so many good times. It was such good years, and man, I love being there for it. And there's a lot of things that come to mind that just, we'll sit around and revisit about with the other guys. But it was just a wealth of information. It was a great position for a young musician to be in. That's the biggest takeaway from all that.
Hopefully the statute of limitations is up on driving without a chauffeur's license and reckless endangerment of cones. Yeah,
I wasn't going that fast was the funny part, but I didn't anticipate how much play was going to be in the steering wheel either.
Oh, I've never done that either. So yeah.
Needless to say, I wasn't that good of a shotgun rider as well. So.
So you got yourself out of the dirty work.
Yeah, Kent Blanton, that actually still plays with us, was playing bass with Jesse at the time, and Kent drove a lot. And I would always kind of ride shotgun and eventually go to just kind of doze off. And Jesse would always come up there and say, well, it looks like your shotgun rider's officially riding BB.
What does that mean?
BB gun, just a weak imitation of a shotgun rider. Yeah,
I'm with you now.
Yeah, okay. So they'd all get a good laugh out of that. But it was a wonderful, wonderful experience for sure.
I didn't think to ask you this, but you kind of brought it up. At one point, I interviewed both Chris Warner and Tom Adams about playing with Jimmy Martin and talking to them about how there's sort of like a fraternity of former Jimmy Martin banjo players that they can hang out or whatever. Is there a similar thing with the Jim and Jesse crew?
Oh yeah, we all have alike stories just of the brothers interacting. And the real funny part is, having been around the Osborne Brothers, total different personalities, but in ways they would interact the same way. It's like they could communicate and not really have a conversation, I guess.
That a shorthand.
Yeah. And if they got aggravated at each other, the best decision you could make would be to not take sides. Stay neutral.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, they're all still siblings, and they're working together full time and traveling together, but they're still brothers, And but it was it is a fraternity for sure. Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah,
that's
Mike
really
Scott's a friend of mine, and of course he had played with them. Jim Britton, Lloyd Douglas, Raymond McLean are the guys that I know the best out of all those. And we could walk up right now and start in on a story, and they would know exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah. Tim Ellis was another local guy to me up here. He just passed away like about a year ago, but he's another one.
Tim was a great player with them, man. I did some great recordings with them too.
Let's move on to some of your own music. You were saying that you felt that was your opportunity to really, I don't know if flex your own muscles is the right word for it, but to kind of, stake out your own territory a bit. I guess first, I don't have any specific questions about it, but you had that album called April's Fool, which is great, amazing banjo tone. And
thank you.
I really dug that. But then you came out with Heroes and Friends. That sounds like it must have been a lot of fun to make that one.
Oh my goodness, it really was. And just some of these folks that I'd been around through the years and never really may have recorded with or haven't had the opportunity to work with, I would have songs come to mind. And I would think, man, I would love to hear them sing that. I wonder if they've ever sang that, or I wonder if they've ever thought about it. And so, I'd kind of gotten back into doing some studio stuff. And my friend Stephen Burwell was the engineer on that album. And I mentioned it to him. And really, it started when me and my wife got married. We had the song Forever Young played at our wedding.
Yeah.
I love story songs. I love songs that have a story to tell and just melody, you know. I was like, there's a guy that needs to sing this. Now, I don't know that he knows it yet, but he's a friend of mine, and he works for Ricky Skaggs, and his name's Paul Brewster. And, I'm going to record this one day. And that was during our wedding. And I was at the Grand Ole Opry playing with Bobby, and Paul was there with Ricky. And in passing, I said, hey, Paul, man, I'm going to start working on a collaboration album. I've got a song I want you to sing. And he's like, yeah. I was like, if you don't mind to do it. Yeah, man, just let me know when you get started, and we'll see if we can knock it out. And
yeah,
that was it. He went out and did his show. I did mine. And I'm like, oh, hey, good. Paul's on board, So fast forward, it was a couple of years until I got to work on the album. And that was one of the first ones. And I filled in with Dole Lawson a couple of times. I always wanted to record something with Dole. He's a huge hero of mine. Ricky Wasson, that sang with J.D. Crowe, me being a huge J.D. Crowe fan. Jeff Talbert from the Primitive Quartet. Of course, Rhonda Vincent, Darren Vincent. But there was every song there, I had a reason I wanted to record it. And I got to write an instrumental for both of my boys, and it's part of that album, too. Man, I just love hearing music come together and hearing an idea that I might have had in my head come through the speakers, and it's like the light bulb turns on.
And in my experience, half the time it ends up even better than you thought it was going to be great, and it still ends up being better somehow.
And Forever Young was like that. Paul, when I called him, I was like, hey, Paul, you remember me mentioning that album? Yeah. Have you started on? I'm like, yeah, and I've got a song for you. Oh, okay, yeah, what is it? I said, well, it's kind of a Rod Stewart song. Oh? Yeah, which one? I said, well, Forever Young. Yeah, I've heard that. And so we talked through what I was thinking, and he's like, well, let me work on it a little bit. And so I called him back in a week. I'm like, man, I've got some studio time coming up. You feel comfortable giving it a try? And he's like, yeah, we'll give it a try. And we went through what chord we were going to do it in and this and that. And Paul is so humble, man. He's just one of the most kind people you'd ever meet. I remember driving to the studio, and he was riding with me. And he's like, now listen, if this ain't what I'm hearing or what you're hearing, and it don't turn out how you want, just, don't worry about getting somebody else to sing it, but I'll give it my all,
Yeah.
And we got in there to record it, and no joke, Paul, the first take, he kind of got his ears set, and the tone set and the level set. And the second take that he did is the one that's on the album.
May good fortune be with you. May your guiding light be strong. Build a stairway to heaven with a prince or a vagabond. May you never love in vain, and in my heart you will remain forever young. Forever
And I was so emotional about it. I'm tenderhearted anyway. I was sitting there crying. Of course, he couldn't see me. And, so I thought this is as good as anything I've ever heard. And of course, I'm passionate about it. So, and I was just thinking through, it was kind of like that moment I was kicking off Midnight Flyer with the Osborne Brothers. In my mind, I was thinking about telling my wife that I wanted to record it one day. And I'm like, one day if we have kids, I want to have a version of this song from me to them.
Yeah.
And so Paul sang through it, absolutely nailed it. And I had him sing it a third time just because I didn't want the moment to end. But that second take is what's on the record. And thankfully, Paul had the idea of bringing Dolly on board, and the rest of it all come together. That's Trey Hensley doing the guitar work, and Andy Leftwich, Josh Swift, Kent Blanton, Derek Deakins, my friend that plays in the Troubadours, did all the strings on there. And man, it was just that whole album was just a fun experience. It was like low pressure, and I just really got to record music, sink or swim. It was how I heard it,
Yeah. No, it's great. Paul and Dolly, just two of the most beautiful voices that we know of in our kind of music,
I'm telling you.
How could you go wrong with that?
It was so amazing, and radio got behind it, and it's still getting played today, of course, thankfully, but the song got out there, and it was such an amazing experience.
I was really caught off guard because I saw, a promotional post for it, and I'm like, oh, Forever Young, because I know that Bob Dylan song has the same title, and that's kind of made its way into bluegrass a little bit.
Yeah.
So I was expecting that, and I'm like, oh, no, it's this Rod. Like, I knew the song.
Right.
So I thought that was really cool. Like, oh, it's this one.
Sure. The funny part, I figured that not in a million years would it make it to Rod Stewart himself, but it did.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And so...
Did you hear back from him or something?
Yeah, man. So the song, and I'm sure the Dolly factor helped get it to him, but the song was doing really well, and it wound up being hitting number one for the month. It was a number one song for the month, and then it hit number one on Bluegrass Unlimited, too, and a gentleman in England that's part of Rod Stewart's fan club heard it. And he sent it to Rod's band leader, who played it for him while they were doing the tour that year. And so I wake up one morning, and I've got this social media shout out from Rod Stewart, and I figured it was a fake page. Just out of thinking, oh, man, because I'd had a lot of fake Dolly pages come on board, when we announced that she was on there. No, it was him. And he said,
Amazing.
Congratulations, Daniel, Paul, and Dolly, on a great version of this song, and congratulations on the number one.
That's incredible.
And really love the version. So when he started his tour over in America, I wound up getting to go. I was invited to go to Nashville, and me and my wife meet him at his show at the amphitheater in Nashville.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So I was assuming I'd have to introduce myself to him and all that, but the show's over, and his manager brought me back, and he walks up and he says, Daniel, I really love what you did with the song, And I said, was that really you that gave me the shout out on social? Oh, yeah, that one was me. A lot of times it's someone else, but that one was me. And I was like, man, I really appreciate it. And he says, yeah, I love folk music. And I was like, yeah, bluegrass. And he said, bluegrass. He's like, I've always called it folk music. So we had a good conversation, and it was just such a cool full circle moment for this bluegrass version of this song to make it back to the rock world. And
I guess that doesn't surprise. I mean, he has mandolins and fiddles on a few songs here and there, so that doesn't surprise me too much.
He's added one of the banjo guitars to Forever Young, and selfishly, I like to think that it had a little influence in that decision, but who knows?
100%, not a doubt in my mind.
Right? But it was great. It was great.
Another one I really dig, most notably for some banjo stylistic things, is the version of I'm Looking at the World Through the Windshield.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm looking at the world through the windshield, and I see everything in a little bit different light. I got a sweet little thing I'm wanting to see in Nashville, and I'm down around Dallas and rolling on south tonight. Strips of rubber that you see were burned off of this rig by the likes of me, and they'll rot along the highways in this land.
I'm wondering if you might play through a few of those style of licks and show how you approach that type of like more honky-tonk kind of song?
My buddy Trey Hensley played guitar on the bulk of that album, and I'm a huge fan of Trey's work, his guitar playing and his singing. And I love that era of country music. Had a lot of grit to it, and just, just had a certain feel to the rhythm section. And I love Del Reeves, too, and of course, that's one of his songs. When I just thought, well, Trey's got to sing that one. And so I had more fun cutting the banjo on that because I was just playing. It's probably, probably a little heavy on the banjo, but we all were having so much fun playing it. And my friend Kent, if you could just channel the bass line on that song alone, it's incredible itself. But the rhythm section was just absolutely so good, it really made it easy for me to play. I'd have to kind of think through what I did, but some of the stuff in between the vocals, just that in between there and kind of in between what Trey was singing, and all of it's just kind of coming off of a feel. And
And then the new album and it's self-titled, right? Daniel Grindstaff and the Uptown Troubadours.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Really love your song selection. Playing and singing is wonderful. Another unique one that caught my ear was the version of Corina Corina.
Sure.
That's like one of the bounciest bluegrass songs I've heard in a while, which is saying a lot because we love our bouncing bluegrass songs.
Oh, yeah.
Corina, Corina, be a pal of mine. Corina, Corina, be a pal of mine. 'Cause you got me walking just to keep from crying. I love Corina, tell the world I do. I love Corina, tell the world I do. Just a little more loving, let your heart be true.
Man, cool. I'm glad you asked about that one. So, cool story about Corina Corina. When there's actually a lot of reasons I recorded that song. But initially, my dad recorded an album with Carl Story when he was playing with him. And that song was on there, and I always loved it. And there's so many different versions of it. It goes back to Delta Blues, and then there's the Bob Wills version, and Merle Haggard did it because he loved Bob Wills.
I was always the most familiar with Dr. John doing like a New Orleans style.
Yeah, man. Asleep at the Wheel did it, of course, and the New Orleans stuff. So my dad did that with Carl Story. And when we were young, I don't even know if we really, outside of the little banjo I was learning on, I don't know if we had a banjo at the house. We went and seen Carl a couple of times when he was playing locally. Mm-hmm. And I remember one time in particular, my dad was there and Carl called him up as having previously worked with him, and they did that song. And I've just, just putting him on a pedestal. I thought, I wanted a song on the album that featured every player. Like Kenton Blanton is one of the greatest upright players. He plays from a different world. He's just a different student of the upright, huge far as being able to capture like that swing kind of Texas feel, and a lot of the 50s and 60s country music was cut on bass. Matter of fact, the bass that recorded that actually recorded Pure Love with Ronnie Millsap and so many other hits as well. So that's the original. Wow. It was used on a lot of original.
Yeah, that's cool.
Original recordings. So I wanted a song that featured everyone, but that song goes back to my childhood. And if there's any break on the record that is kind of something that represents how I think, a lot of ways, that was one of them. And we got to do twin fiddles on it. Derek Deakins that plays fiddle with us, his wife's a great fiddle player. She's she's worked with a lot of great artists as well. So she come in and played twin fiddles, and it got to feature Kent on bass, and I got to play around with it. So it was a fun tune, kind of a Scruggs bass, but also a little blues influence in there as well, I guess.
Totally.
Yeah.
Are you a person who does a lot of metronome work, like for right hand practice?
Very little. I should should do a lot more than I do. It is a very good thing to do. I've done more of that in the latter part of my playing than I didn't know about it in the first part. And I was playing with old records that the timing would move around. It would ebb and flow. You listen to Flatt and Scruggs, and man, they were breathing. That whole thing, they were playing together so much, man. They were a machine.
Tell me if you have an opinion on this. Where I was going with that is, when you do play with a metronome, do you try to play dead even, or do you try to play with a bounce even with the metronome?
I would try both, because you're going to need both. There are some great banjo players that, Ron Block comes to mind, Kristen Scott Benson, that can play right dead right there on the center and lean on the front if they want to. And it is amazing to hear them do that. So if you're going to play with a metronome, I would encourage folks to use that to understand how you can play in different parts of where the timing is at, be that in the middle or leaning on the front or playing with a bounce. All that will be good knowledge. It's just good overall knowledge, because I do tend to push at times. I've tried to learn a lot of things I do require to, play kind of in the middle. So I've worked at that more in this season than I ever did when I was, 12, 13, 14. I just didn't know. I wish I did back then, though. It would have helped me out later in life,
It's really funny to hear you say that, because I think most of us are trying to achieve what you're saying is a little bit of an issue for you. Most of us are trying to add that little bit of extra drive, but I guess we all have our things.
Yeah, mine usually comes just from the energy of playing live. I'll come in and for a break just kind of shove around a little bit. And Kent Blanton has played with me since I was 18 years old, so he knows. Troy here, thankfully, been helping us out on mandolin on the live shows, and he's a really good timing player. I was talking to Kent about that coming over here. And it's so fun. And Kevin Richardson, that plays guitar, they play with feel, and that is the most fun thing about playing live is to feel that rhythm section, just kind of breathing, and you come in for a break and they're right there behind you. It's a whole lot of fun to do that. That's my favorite thing about playing live is the interaction with the other players and the audience, And it's different, our rhythm section, and and you can hear it on the album or what we do. It's a different feel. It's a different feel, and it's kind of a different dynamic than it's just got an influence from so many things that are specific to each of us as a player and the way we think. So when it comes together, I do feel like we have a bit of a different sound, like on Corina or Denver or really Angel Dream.
I saw an angel, I saw my faith. I can only thank God it was not too late. Over mountains I floated away, crossing ocean
But then you go over to some of the more straight ahead stuff, like A Little Goes a Long Way or Goodbye Little Darling, and it's kind of got that, that traditional format of a rhythm section. Yeah.
David killed Goliath with just a little stone. He put it in his sling and he made a mighty throw. Just a little went a long, long way. 5 loaves and 2 fish were all they could find. Jesus fed the multitude on the mountainside. Just a little went a long, long way.
I'm not intending to make you self-conscious at all, but I want to talk to you a little bit about like physically how you hold the instrument.
Sure.
I was watching some YouTube videos, and I noticed a few details, and maybe it was just to that video, but I want to ask you about them. Everyone knows about J.D. Crowe and the claw, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're not nearly that extreme, but it almost looks like you play with like a little bit of a scaled down type of Crowe approach. Am I seeing that right? And if so, is that?
Oh, yeah.
Is there an element of like intention with that, or is that just how it ended up?
Well, I guess by now that's how it ended up, but I am one of the world's biggest J.D. Crowe fans. And I knew as a
Everyone
kid,
says that.
I know, yeah, but I'll go to say that I'm probably a bigger fan than everybody else,
right,
and everybody else says that too, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm joking, man. I love J.D. Crowe, like so many banjo players. I don't know anyone that doesn't love J.D. But when I was learning to play, I really tried to pay attention to Sonny, Earl, and J.D. and how they held the instruments. So all three of those influences are what I try to do. And, I've often described it to folks that have maybe asked that, well, why do you do that? And, well, I figured that if their form helped them sound the way I wanted to sound, I needed to try to replicate it. And, man, I tried my best when I was learning to play to make sure I was trying to anchor my hand like that, to the point when I first started, it was not natural. But for me now, if I go to play a banjo, that's how I anchor.
Yeah.
How I anchor, and I just played the way it felt natural with my left hand. But I really tried to study the right hand, and your form is important. It's like the form of a pro golfer. That form is so important, especially you get some years on you and get to play in. That's what you'll always go back to, is the form that you've developed. Long story short, to answer your question, yeah, that was intentional back then, and I had to work at it. But it after a few years in playing for a while, it just become very natural to me.
Well, now that we're talking about a bit more of banjo tone, is this your primary banjo that you have with you right here today?
Yeah, it is. And
tell me all about it.
Sure. So I've had a few banjos through the years. I played an Osborne Chief for a long time. From 2004 on with Jesse and the Osbornes, and cut the April Fool album with it. On the Heroes album, I cut that with a Gibson RB75 Crowe model, 1997, one of the first year they made them, which I've still got that banjo. And I always wanted an older banjo. I'd been never really in the position to get one, and my friend Jim Britton deals a lot of banjos, and I told him, man, I'm telling you, who knows if he even remembers selling me this one. But I wanted an RB7, an style of an RB75, and the closest thing I could get to it, I found a conversion. So the banjo I've got was shipped out of Gibson December of 1936 as a tenor, according to the ledger. And we got a 5-string Huber neck in it, got all the original metal hardware, resonator and all that. And when I got it, I put one of Jim's new series tone rings in it.
Yeah,
and
what do we think of it?
I've been happy with it. And so it cut the entire Troubadour album, and I use it on all the live stuff. And
well, your banjo sounds huge, man.
Thank you.
Whatever you've put together with it.
Yeah.
Plus your playing, of course. But
yeah, but I've used the same strings for over 20 years now, and it's the GHS JD Stage strings. I've used them for, as far back as I can remember, and
right.
I endorse GHS strings, so I love that set in particular. But really happy with this banjo, and really, really happy with the way the tone ring settled in on it.
Now tell me this. Did you have it for a while with a previous tone ring?
I had when I first got it, it had a Huber HR30 in it, and it was
which are
great.
Pretty great too.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, I love Huber's work, love his tone rings, love his necks, and Jim had just developed the series rings, and he's like, "Man, listen, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like for you to see what you think about this ring. Slides right in, give it a try for a while, and hey, if you don't like it, don't." Do anything with the Huber. You can keep it. It won't hurt my feelings. And, man, he put went by there and we slid this ring in, and I let it set for a couple weeks and snugged the head up where I kind of keep it, and I just fell in love with it. I was happy with the, especially if I go down the neck for something, I really like the high-end bite that it brought out, just like right there, you know. And just anywhere through that part of the neck, I felt like it brought out some dynamics in there that I was looking for. And so I've really been happy with it.
Yeah, that's cool. So speaking of that, what else works for you? Take us through all of your, like, what is your current bridge, or is there any special head or picks or capo or anything that you're using?
Sure, yeah. So I've got an Elliott capo I've used for over 20 years now. Of course, the GHS strings, J.D. Crowe stage strings. I've got a Gary Sosebee bridge on this banjo that has really worked well for it. A lot of bridges out there I really like from some bridge makers. As crazy as this sounds, I don't swap bridges a lot, but I love collecting bridges.
Me too.
I love it. I've got a whole drawer full of them.
Yeah,
and some beautiful bridges, some from Sullivan, but this is a Sosebee bridge on this banjo. And Weather King head, it stays right around G sharp, maybe just... If it leans anywhere, I would go just on the tighter side of G sharp, really. But that's where this head is at, and has been. That's always a good starting point. I've had some maple banjos that sounded better almost in an A than they did a G sharp, just to keep a little overtone out of it on a specific banjo. It leaned toward that. So, but that's always my starting point, is right through there, and that's where this one's at. But it's got a Huber neck in it, great neck. Huber does great work. I've had banjos with Frank Neat necks though too, great necks there. But that's pretty well the setup on this one, man. And I don't run my action. For me, it's not high. Somebody else may play it and feel like it's a little high, but sometimes I'll play a little too hard and I don't like it to buzz. But
yeah, get a little more punch out of it.
Sure, yeah.
How about picks? Are you partial to any particular set of picks?
Finger picks, I've used Hoffmeyer's for years now. I started out using the old Nationals and loved them, but some of those old ones where the hole was punched, they would break on the index, on the side there, that first hole. And I've still got some of those, but I got into Hoffmeyer's, and as I know there's a big thing in the world on thumb picks, but I have used these Tortoise Dunlop thumb picks for 20 years now, too.
Yeah.
A lot of folks use a lot of different things there, but that's worked for me.
Well, hey, Daniel, I've kept you long enough. Is there anything I forgot to ask you that you want to tell people? I mean, definitely drop your website, but just in case there's anything other like stories you wanted to tell, or anything else about your playing.
Really, music has been such a part of my life, and I love how it communicates with folks. I love how it can bring a smile, or if I record something that helps somebody or makes their day better, that is the best thing. But all my music's available out there on streaming and any platforms, website danielgrindstaff.com, and we've got a few live shows and things coming up, but it's always an honor to me when folks enjoy something that I'm part of musically. I really enjoy that. So Instagram, folks want to keep up with anything new happened, Daniel Grindstaff Banjo and Daniel Grindstaff Music on Facebook for the folks that want to go over there and check out any of the new stuff. I'm just thankful to be surrounded by a lot of great players who've made me, anything good about my playing has come from folks who decided to invest time and help me become a better player. The Lord allowed it to happen and allowed the dots to connect and put the people in my path. So I'm always thankful for that. Even now, there's still people who allow time to help accomplish things. I can't record an album by myself. It's everybody that's involved that says, we'll play on that. We'll be part of that. We'll, hey, I'd love to help you out with that. Just like these guys helping me record this interview. So
exactly. Well, cheers to that, Daniel. Thanks for sharing all your stories and your tips and your music. Really appreciate you making the time to talk with me today.
Yeah, it's an honor, man. Thank you for what you do to promote this stuff for all of us and get our story out there.
You bet. Cheers.
Thank you, Keith.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode, folks. That's going to do it for this one. You heard a whole bunch of song clips, and they were Goodbye Little Darlin' by Daniel Grindstaff and the Uptown Troubadours, Midnight Flyer by the Osborne Brothers with Mac Wiseman, another version of Midnight Flyer, this time with Daniel Grindstaff on banjo, Johnny Be Good by Jim and Jesse, Bird Song, and then Showboat Gambler, both by Jesse McReynolds, then a whole bunch by our featured guest Daniel Grindstaff. We got Sourwood Mountain, Finland, Forever Young, Looking at the World Through a Windshield, Karina, and then with the Uptown Troubadours we have Angel Dream and A Little Goes a Long Way. Extra special thanks to Todd Goodell, this episode's Patreon VIP supporter of the show. Head over to patreon.com/banjopodcast. Do it right now. See what all the fuss is about. Support the show. Get your rewards. It's a win-win situation, folks. Or email me at pickyfingersbanjopodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'll see you all next time.